Hi there, folks. This is Sam Price, and welcome to another episode of Probate Notes, your podcast for probate professionals. And I have with me a probate professional. He's a realtor, and he's going to tell us a lot about how best that realtors and attorneys can work together. Thank you so much, Bill Gross, for being on the podcast with me today.
Sam, my pleasure. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, and I just want to get started with learning a little bit more about you, where you're from, your background.
Well, I'm a native Californian. I was born in Santa Monica, raised in Orange County, went to college at USC, and live on the west side of LA. I've been here my whole life but 2 years. I went to Florida to find my wife and dragged her back here, and she's been happy ever since. And married those 39 years. I've been in real estate at the same time. We have one child who's married, and we have two grandkids and a third on the way. So I'm that grandfather. I have the watch with the pictures on them, and that's really my life these days.
Did your child ever feel like he or she wanted a sibling?
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think not only that, she also felt that she held this resentment against me. She shared recently that she thought I was wanted a boy, and truth was we've been married 10 years and trying to have children and went through incredible pain to have one. We feel very blessed to have a child. So I never for a minute felt anything but gratitude for having a child. And then she had two grandsons, and when the third one, she went to the doctor and they told her it was a grandson as well. She called me and said, "Dad, I'm really mad at you." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I know you're praying that I should have another son." I said, "No, honey, I'm just glad to have a healthy grandchild." Yeah, she did grow up, and I think she's watching her two sons create a great relationship is very important to her because she didn't have that.
That's really cool. My wife and I have one son. He's 8 years old. He would love
Mm,
a little sister, and we went through the same difficulties. We had a big
mm,
challenge having a child ourselves, and went through multiple rounds of IVF to have the
mm,
one child that we have, and we're fortunate to
mm.
have a wonderful son that we feel blessed to be his parents.
Yeah,
But he
same. I mean, I
does.
just feel so overwhelmed with blessing to have a child, and so we poured everything into her, and it's been a fantastic experience.
Sometimes working together in the real estate world and the legal world requires some understanding of how each works. Can you give us a
Mm.
little idea about how the real estate world can work best with the legal world?
Yeah, for example, I got a recent case from a fiduciary to sell property, and there's some heirs that are very tense, and we know, we suspect they're going to object. And then we have two tenants. One of the tenants is related to one of the heirs, not the heir. And so, how do you manage that as a real estate agent? Well, you know, you, the tenants never want to show the property. How hard do we push it? And then, second, the notice of proposed action. How does that process play out? And then, how do I converse on that regarding with the buyer's agents? So those are areas where most agents don't know there are such procedures, or don't know to think about the tenant being the one of the heirs' cousins, and how that's going to play into it. But by being able to talk to the attorney as well as the fiduciary, I can kind of help strike the balance, or help organize a game plan on how harsh you want to push the tenants, and then in my mind, get the NOPA through as quick as possible, hopefully to avoid court confirmation, or if not, to prepare the buyer to say we're going to go to court, but here's the process, and you don't need to worry about it. So again, I think the distinction, I think one of the changes in our market with all the AI and technology, on one hand, it's made the low bar easier to reach. The basics of getting a house on the property on the market, or an attorney to draft a document, to draft some petitions. But when you can work with all different people, different parties, different disciplines, I think that's where the extra value comes from for our customers. And so that's why I try to focus on kind of coordination between two or three different parties in an organization.
What are some other ways that realtors and attorneys can work together to achieve the common goal of getting a property sold to bring liquidity to an estate?
I think first thing is I encourage attorneys, the earlier you get a realtor involved, the better. So for example, when you do your intake on a probate, whether customers give you a deposit or you think that there is value there or not, why not get a realtor to drive the property and just get eyes on? I've literally had cases where attorneys called me, we drove and found out the property had been burned down in half. And so what would have been a $600,000 property was worth about 250 as is, and it had $300,000 mortgage. So the attorney was taking the case on the assumption there'd be equity, and there wasn't any. And this person had been to two or three other attorneys beforehand. So I would say, number one, get the value of the property. Also, another person talking to your client, I think, is always helpful to hear what's going on in the story and the information and verify it. So I would say number one, the sooner you get involved, I think the better. And I think the second is, we real estate agents are salespeople. We're used to pushing people, following up with people to get them to sign. Attorneys normally don't play that role. Maybe you have staff, maybe you have some software, but there's no substitute for a person calling and saying, "Hey, are you ready to move forward on this?" And we work in realtor time versus attorney time. And no insult, but as a realtor, if you call me or text me, you expect, I think, rightfully, a reply in minutes and hours. Certainly by the end of the day. Almost every realtor will get back to you in that time period. Attorneys, I'll call them on a Monday, and I'll get a phone call back the following Monday, and they'll say, "Hey, Bill, this is Joe." I'm like, "Why did I call you?" Because it's been a week. Like, my life changed in a week.
Yeah.
So I just think it's the nature of us, and we'll charge by the hour. We're not charging you or your customer. So why would you not leverage the relationship? And so let us help follow up on the transaction, see where they are. Why haven't they signed the papers? We go out and get them to sign papers in person, like contracts and such. Whereas attorneys typically don't do that. They make them come to the office. So again, I think every attorney is different, but I feel like you could use us and leverage our relationship more for the customer's benefit, as well as the attorney's practice than you are right now.
If you were talking to another real estate agent, what advice would you give them if they wanted to get into the uh, probate or trust and estates world in real estate?
Interesting enough, I get asked this all the time. And interesting enough, I have a webinar tomorrow, not to be shameless about this, on the subject, but I regularly coach agents on careers. I've been fortunate to do really well. And the thing I would say is that, the money we get paid, whether you're an attorney or a realtor, is a reflection of the value we create for other people. And so rather than find a way to get more money from other people, find a way to be more valuable to other people so they want to use you and work with you and ultimately you get paid. And so I would say find an area that you enjoy in the business. Probate is very broad. I happen to go hyper legal, but there's other people who work more in the senior care, senior homes to help people transition out. There are other people who are more involved in more the estate, with sales and personal property and combining that into the process. There's a lot of ways to work this. I found one that I really liked, but find area that can be an expert in. So people then call you because they have a problem. And if you solve it, you get paid rather than trying to beg them for business, because it's just a much more enjoyable way to business. It's also more efficient because people calling me want to do business with me rather than me trying to sell a bunch of people who don't.
That's excellent advice. And I want to talk about a little bit about the future for you. If you and I were sitting here a year from now, what would have had to have happened over that year in order for you to say that the past year was a success for you?
For me personally, I came into this with a 5-year plan to build the business I built. And then the next 5-year plan, which I'm now ending year one, going to be in year two, is building a national platform. I think that like a lot of industries have become more nationalized. If you think about restaurants or auto repair, gas stations, they went from small local shop businesses to larger. And I think in real estate, probate in particular is ripe for that, in that I work with vendors across the country that give me resources that local real estate agents don't even know about. Bond companies and advance companies and loans to administrators and title companies. And so I think that for me personally, I've been trying to grow. I have about 38 people on my team nationally now. The podcast has been the resource to build that. So I'm really looking to help create a national platform. And then from there, to get realtors to educate their customers on avoiding probate, estate planning, finding local attorneys to help them market their estate planning services. And so the goal here for me is to create a platform of education and raising the professional standards of realtors working in this space to be more valuable to their customers.